Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jim Ng, and I'm an Enterprise Mobility Architect with Research in Motion. And I want to welcome you to Blackberry 10 Jam in Waterloo. And this is great because this is in our hometown, so it feels like I'm playing hockey and in front of the hometown crowd here. So if you guys feel like cheering, yeah, just go right ahead. Just don't boo, okay? Okay, so basically what this session is about, it's about our new enterprise mobility strategy. And why do we need this new enterprise strategy? Well, obviously, as you guys know, we're kind of, basically rebuilding our platform. So basically, we're kind of abandoning Java, in a sense, I guess. And, we're just, moving towards BB10. And, obviously, that requires a new strategy. So I guess what this session is about is how do you basically move from, all the Java stuff that you already have. And you can basically move it now to WebWorks, and then you can basically move it again when BB10 comes out in January. Okay, so that's what this session will be about. So as I said, I've been with Brim for about 1.5 years, but I've actually been in the tech industry for about 15 years. So yeah, I'm kind of an old guy. I don't look like it. A lot of people say I actually still get carded every now and then when I order beer and stuff like that. So it's kind of crazy. So here's the agenda for today. Basically, I'm going to cover these 3 topics. Before I actually get into the strategy, what I want to kind of give you is a little bit of a context, into kind of where BlackBerry is right now. I think you probably already got a lot of that from the keynote sessions this morning, but I just want to review a couple things, and then I'll actually dive into the mobile strategies and talk about, I guess, the future, the roadmap. So basically, where we're headed long term. Okay, before I get started, I'm just kind of curious what the audience is here. How many people here are developers? Oh, okay, great, good number here. How many, I guess, administrators, like biz administrators, IT administrators? Oh, okay. And I guess managers, execs, decision makers? Okay, great. Okay, so I've got some numbers up here, actually days, and I'm just kind of curious if you guys want to take a guess at what these numbers actually mean. So, the first bullet point there is 2 years, 2 months, 5 days, which is 796 days. And the second one is 7 months and 4 days, which is 218 days. And yeah, one guy actually, I did this session again over in New York, and one guy said, oh, that's how many days it's going to take to launch BlackBerry 10. And yeah, I almost ran him out of the room. But yeah. Any guesses? Come on. I got free BlackBerry headphones I can give you for guessing. No takers? Okay, so basically the first point is how long it took us to get to 1 billion downloads in AppWorld. And the second point is how long it took us to get to 2 billion. And from the, I guess the keynote this morning, I saw that we're actually over 3 billion now. So I need to update these slides. So I'm not sure what the third bullet is, but I suspect that it's probably, less than that. It's probably like 3 or 4 months or something like that. But basically what you're seeing here is that the trend for mobile apps is basically moving at a very, very fast pace. So, I guess kind of where we are, it's kind of like where the web was, back in the 90s, the late 90s, I guess, where, everybody was just starting to, like get their own websites out there. So, I kind of see us, kind of at that point, right? So definitely mobile apps are very important. And I think you've seen these numbers earlier. My numbers are a little bit behind because, they said over 3 billion apps this morning. And I think it was it over 180 million apps or something like that? Yeah. But yeah, so basically just to kind of prove where BlackBerry is, we're not dead. Obviously, if you listen to the press, they'd have you kind of believe that, Brim is dead and we're just fading away. I kind of disagree because if you look at the numbers, we're still out there. Yeah, in North America, we're kind of struggling there. But if you look at where we are in the rest of the world, like South America, Europe, Africa, we're pretty much #1 in those countries. So yeah. So if you're developing apps, there's definitely a market out there for you. And when you look at, the population of China and India, we're talking a huge market there, right? So you definitely don't want to ignore that. And I guess the nice thing too about our app world is we actually have something called carrier billing. So like in countries, other countries, where like people don't actually pay for apps with their credit card, they can actually do it through their carrier billing. So like they can actually purchase an app on the App Store, and it just basically goes on to their their phone bill basically. So that's like another way that people can actually purchase stuff without needing a credit card. Right. So this is probably another reason why people are more willing to buy BlackBerry apps, unlike Android and those guys. And okay, yeah. So the number this morning that I saw was, so the number here I have is there's over 77 million BlackBerry subscribers, but now that number is up to 80 million. So you can definitely see that the numbers aren't going down; they're actually going up. So the next question is, why would you want to develop for BlackBerry? I can list lots of reasons. Obviously we have security. That's what we're known for. Reliability. We have our push mechanism. Other phones don't have that. And I guess push is a really important feature, like when you're talking about battery life. Because if you want your phone to constantly get data, like what other phones have to do is they have to constantly poll the server for information. And if you want very frequently updated data, then basically you have to poll like every 30 seconds or something like that. And every time you do that on a mobile device, it's transmitting a signal, and it's killing your battery a lot faster. Whereas push, basically it just waits. It just waits for the signal, so it doesn't have to go out and send pull requests or anything like that. So that's why push is very important. So that's another feature that's really big for BlackBerry. But I guess the ones that are listed here are, we provide deep integration, and what that means is we basically give you different SDKs. So we have our C++ SDK, we have our WebWorks SDK, which is all HTML5 based. But even though you're using web technologies, you're actually still getting native functionality. So we allow you to get hooks into our operating system. So you can tie into things like like PIM, push, system functionality. And the other thing that we also provide is extra services to actually help you guys as developers. So obviously, you want to create your app to actually make money, and we provide things like payment. So we take care of payment for you. You can we handle like in-app purchases as well. So this is kind of like your freemium app. You create a free app, but then if they want to get an add-on, then they pay for the add-ons. So we can help you manage that kind of stuff with our SDKs as well. We kind of built all that stuff in for you, so you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to test the security and all that kind of stuff. And same with advertising. Like if you want to create a free app, but you want to do banner advertising as a source of revenue, all that's kind of built into the system. Okay, and of course this morning they talked about that rich user experience. Where content is king. And the whole idea of what's the word they use? Moments of charm. Right. So that's another reason why you basically want to come to BlackBerry. And the other thing was choices. So like earlier, Alex Saunders was saying, people find it very confusing to develop for BlackBerry because we have too many choices. But as an enterprise, like you have to recognize that every company is different, every developer is different, every project has different requirements. So you can't really take like one solution and basically one size fits all. You basically want to customize like what you're building and basically tailor it to what you need. So this is what I really like about our BlackBerry developer platform is you have all these choices. So you can choose Android, Java, you can choose Flash, you can choose the native SDK and WebWorks, and choices go on and on underneath. Does anybody have any questions so far? So if you have any questions, during the presentation, just feel free to ask, because I kind of want to make this interactive, because I know this is the session right after lunch, so people are probably going to be dozing off on me here. Okay, strategy. So if you're like a hockey team, right, you don't just go out there, as a coach and say, okay, guys, just go out there and score, right? You usually have a strategy, right? You have a plan of attack, who's doing what, stuff like that. So same with mobile strategy, right? You don't want to just kind of wing it, right? You probably have, like different developer teams, lots of different assets that are available. And you don't want everybody, going out and reinventing the wheel and, stepping on each other's toes. right? So you don't want everybody creating their own UI framework. You don't want everybody choosing their own frameworks. You probably want to standardize on something like jQuery or Essential Touch or something like that. So it's really important to take a look at your strategy, right? So first thing you probably want to do is take a look at what products or services you should offer. Which ones make sense for mobile. Like if you have like a website, you don't want to take that whole website try and cram the whole website onto this little device, right? You want to kind of pick and choose which pieces kind of make sense, which that makes sense for mobile. So, and you want to basically ask yourself who are your customers? Who is the user of this application, right? So if it's an older audience, you want to factor in things like font size, right? If it's an older audience, they'll definitely want bigger fonts, because a lot of times, like my eyesight's a little bit better. I'll create a screen with really small text, small buttons, and I'll show it to somebody else, and first thing they complain is it's too small. So you definitely want to know who your customers are and how to engage them. And I guess down here, what should mobility focus on? So you can't do everything. You don't want to try to do everything, because if you build a very heavy app, then it gets very slow, especially on our older Blackberries. So if you need to support like BB6 or even BB5, I actually have customers that are actually still on 4.6. So those are really old devices. They're actually like WAP phones, basically WAP and WML. And they're actually they're not ready to move off it yet. So there's a lot of decisions there. This is actually from a company called NetJets. Basically, it's time sharing for jets. So a lot of celebrities will basically purchase timeshares on jets. And but the problem there is like all the pilots they're all unionized. So basically if you replace the phone, you have to replace it for all the pilots in the union, and then you have to provide them training and all that kind of stuff. So it's not easy to like upgrade enterprises. Yeah, we'd love to get them up to like BB7 at least, but yeah, they're still on 4.6, so we're still pushing them. And I guess the other thing you want to consider is what assets do you already own? This is basically what code do you already have developed, because you don't want to reinvent the wheel every time. So if you have a lot of like let's say Flash resources already, or like you have a lot of C++ classes that you've developed, then that kind of helps steer your decision on which platform you go with. Okay, and yeah, it goes without saying, if you don't have a strategy, then it's just chaos. Everybody's doing their own thing, and that's something you definitely don't want to get into. So basically, you want to look at which areas of your business are suitable for mobilization. And then, how do you prioritize those application requests? Because I'm sure, like, once you, start down this road, everybody wants a mobile app, and, you only have, limited developer resources. So you kind of have to pick and choose and prioritize. And, the next thing you also want to look at is, IT policies. So I think Blackberry, we have, like, over hundreds of different policies that you can, like, control on our devices. Right, so you kind of want to choose, do I want to block the entire app growth for everybody, right? Obviously that doesn't really make sense. You want them, to be able to download some apps, and that's a common complaint. Like I see people out there, with really great Blackberries, but their IT guys, basically block them from doing anything with it. So they can't even download apps, and that's kind of why we get some criticism. Yeah, Blackberry sucks. Well, yeah, it's because you're locked out of everything. So yeah, definitely think about your policies. What makes sense. Just don't do a blanket thing where I would just block everything just because we can. Okay, so I guess the thing for enterprise mobility is we're kind of pushing for developing towards standards and specifications. And because like we're so committed to HTML5 and CSS3 and JavaScript, we're really pushing the standard stuff. We're actually I think we actually have some people on the W3C committees and stuff like that. We have people actually contributing to open source projects. Like on jQuery, PhoneGap. So we have a lot of contributors there directly from RIM. So we think it's really important to develop towards standards because, we kind of recognize that, yeah, there are other phones out there, on as enterprises. You don't want to have to develop your application, 3 or 4 times for different platforms. You don't have to develop one for iOS, one for Android, one for, Windows Phone, right? Most of the time, you would probably want to, write as much of it as you can, once using, web technologies. And then basically, use like something like PhoneGap, and then, you can actually distribute it to different platforms. Right, so we recognize that that's what enterprises do. Of course, we'd love you to just develop for Blackberry, but that's not the reality. And the next thing you want to consider is using frameworks that actually support standards. So you've got lots of different libraries out there. You've got Sencha Touch, jQuery Mobile, Dojo, right, and then you have things like PhoneGap and Aptana. Well, I guess that probably should be Accelerator or something like that. And then there's Alice.js. That's actually a library that I worked on. So it's just basically a tiny JavaScript library for doing CSS3 animations. And you can actually just create simple animations with just one line of code. And I also hear this question a lot, like, is HTML5 up to par yet? Is it as close to native yet? Because there's this idea out there, that it's called NIBS. It's basically native is better syndrome. People say, oh yeah, native is the only way to go. You have to do native, if you want, like the super sexy screens and the performance and all that kind of stuff. But HTML5 it's closing the gap. It's getting better and better, pretty much every week. So now you have things like geolocation, you have WebSockets, you can do offline storage, so you can do local storage. There used to be something called like a SQLite database in there, but now I think it's IndexedDB now, so they're actually replacing that standard. Yeah, of course, I've got audio, video, and the big one here is Webgl. So this allows you to take the gaming technology from OpenGL and actually put it right in your browser. So you can create, some really compelling things. So yeah, so there's some examples there. You got a chess game, and I guess that's like a talent show application there. Is anybody using, I guess, WebWorks right now? HTML5 technologies? Okay, I see one nod. Are you most of you guys like Java developers here? Okay, I see some nods. Okay. All right, so yeah, you've got lots of choices for frameworks and libraries. And this is an area that I find a lot of people don't spend enough time researching. Because I'm actually doing some work with SAP, and the idea of choice is something that they just don't understand. Like they just want somebody to just give them a canned solution and say, okay, for this scenario use this, for this scenario use that, and basically what they want is something like swimming lanes, right? If I'm going to create a large heavy application, I want to go this route. If I'm creating a really light application, I want to go this route. I want to use this stack. So that's what we're trying to, I guess identify for people, right? So it's the idea of kind of using like macro frameworks and micro frameworks. So if you're going to create, like let's say an application for a tablet that has a lot of CPU, a lot of memory, a lot of screen real estate, then you can use something like Sencha Touch or jQuery Mobile, right? Because those frameworks are a little bit heavier. They pretty much have all the functionality you want in them. But if you actually want to develop, something for like an older Blackberry, you probably don't want to use Sencha Touch because it'll be too heavy. Right, because I think the library itself is something like 800K, right? So once you compile that down to something like this, yeah, it gets pretty heavy. So for like a phone, you want to use something like a micro framework. So kind of pick and choose your pieces. So this is kind of how our our platform is kind of laid out. So we have kind of like the old phones on the left. So those will be your BlackBerry 5, BlackBerry 6 phones. In the middle, this is kind of like our BB7 phones and Playbook, and then on the far right, we've got BB10. So we kind of set up our architecture so you can kind of bridge both ends, right? So obviously people will have a lot of apps written for BB5 and BB6. So this kind of gives you a way to basically port your apps from J2ME to HTML5. and then when BB10 actually comes out, then you can actually do a couple changes, and then you can actually move that over to BB10. Right, so that's kind of our strategy. It's kind of like a two-step process. So basically moving from Java to current WebWorks, and then to BB10 WebWorks. Okay. Okay, and yeah, I guess you guys probably already know what WebWorks is, but basically it's a cross-platform HTML5 application framework. So if you guys are familiar with something like PhoneGap, WebWorks is basically the same thing. It's basically the BlackBerry version of it, right? And we actually contribute code to PhoneGap, so pretty much WebWorks is actually inside of PhoneGap. Okay. Or actually, I guess it's called Cordova now. I guess, was it earlier on in the year, I think it got contributed to Apache as an open source project. So now it's actually called Cordova. Okay, and this is kind of how, I guess, the WebWorks layers works. So basically, we have our developer APIs kind of at the low level, and then we kind of build on top of our WebWorks platform. And then on top of that, we have our browser, which is basically a WebKit engine, right? So where that actually came from, we actually acquired a company I think 2 years ago called Torch Mobile, which is actually based in Toronto. And yeah, they created this super fast, rock solid browser for mobile. And yeah, it's great. So basically all our stuff kind of sits on top of that. And the WebKit engine basically gives you this high fidelity rendering engine right in your browser. And of course, if you guys used our old Blackberries, that was one of the criticisms was our browser really sucked on the older devices. So we definitely made a lot of moves to kind of fix that. So that's kind of the stack you're looking at. Okay, and this is just a quick overview on like how to get there. So basically, you have all these HTML assets, right? So if you look at any web page, a web page has HTML files, CSS files, JavaScript, images. Actually, we need some image icons there. It'll probably have like some videos and sound files and stuff like that. So all you do is you basically just write your application normally, like you would write any web page. Right? And all you do is you just add a configuration file, and then you package that up. So you put it through that little conveyor belt idea there. You just package that up, and what it does is it generates a binary for you. And then we just take that binary, and then we can install it either on the phones, or on the phones as a COD file, or you can take it and install it on the playbook as a bar file. And the bar file is just basically a zip file. Okay. So that's the steps, very simple. Any questions so far? Just soaking it all in, right? Okay. So I guess, so there we have all our embedded resources. But what happens if, like, let's say you want to, create some functionality that's, like very low level? Then, how do you do that with HTML technologies? Because, like, obviously HTML can't, access things like your camera, or let's say you want to do like your own encryption. So let's say you want to store some data in local storage or something like that, and you want to handle the encryption yourself. Then how do you do that? So this is how you do it. You do it through extensions. So we already give you basically our SDK gives you access to all these different APIs. So there's a lot more than this. It's just a quick sample here. So basically what you do is you kind of start here. You kind of look for the functionality in our SDK, and if you don't find it there, then this is where you can kind of write your own extensions. So if you're doing something for the older Java smartphones, you can actually reuse some of those libraries and then convert them over as extensions. And then when you compile your application, those extensions get included into your package. The other way is you can actually write Air extensions right now for the current WebWorks. So if your skill set is more in Flash or ActionScript, then you can actually write extensions using that language instead of Java. The only problem is when we move to BB10, you have to rewrite those extensions. So if they're actually already written right now in Java, then you're going to have to port them over to C or C++. Okay, so this is kind of that two-step process. So you can kind of, like, bring your Java applications, to where we are currently, and then come January, then you'll just have to replace just the extensions. Everything else should stay the same. Okay. Okay, and that's the layer there for the JavaScript extensions. And that's what talks directly to our API and our runtime. Okay, so that's kind of the big picture there. So, we've got all our standard-based technologies there. We allow you to use different open source libraries, so you can kind of bring those into the mix. And then, we have distribution, and then there's, all the integration aspects. And this is how we kind of create what we call super apps. So basically what a super app is basically an app that, can talk to other apps and, communicate through, well, I'll give you an example. Does anybody here use Blackberry Travel? Yeah, okay. So basically, what it does is it'll scan your inbox basically for, any trips that you booked. And then basically it'll, read that, and then it'll automatically stick it into your calendar. And, it'll provide you notifications. It actually talks to, I guess, the flight servers. And, if there's a delay, let's say your gate gets changed, it'll actually notify you automatically. So that's what we call a super app. It's a very well-connected app, that integrates with email, integrates with calendar, and, other services as well. Okay, so you're not just writing, this standalone application. They can kind of, work with other apps. Okay, so this is just an example of different apps that are out there in App World right now. So you can see, the bottom one on the, or actually, the two games on the far right there. So you got, Mahjong, Playbook, and Gravitation. So the Gravitation one, I believe that's a Webgl game. Either that or it's Canvas. Okay, how am I doing for time here? Okay. Any questions before we go to the next section? You guys are a quiet bunch. Okay, so basically the roadmap for Blackberry 10, there's going to be no Java, and there's going to be no Air runtimes. And one of the reasons that we don't support Air anymore is because Adobe basically stopped supporting, I guess, Flash on all mobile devices. So that wasn't a decision that, we picked. That was something that Adobe kind of pushed on everybody. So I guess, because I guess one of the problems with, Adobe Air and Flash on mobile is it sucks up a lot of CPU and it uses a lot of battery. Because our browser team, what they did was they did a quick test. Because right now our browser actually sits inside like an Adobe Air container. And what they did was they actually took the browser out and just put it inside a native container. And as soon as they did that, they saw like I think it was a 20% boost in performance and less battery usage. So, Air uses quite a lot. So I think that's probably another reason why, Apple doesn't support it, because it is a bit of a hog. Okay, and basically we're moving towards a JavaScript packager. So if anybody's using WebWorks right now, basically it uses like a Java packager right now. So you have to install the Java SDK right now, and you have to do all the command line stuff to actually package up your stuff. So we're actually going to be moving all that Java stuff out and replacing it with a JavaScript packager that's actually running in Node.js. Okay. And I guess the other thing is because we're kind of so close to PhoneGap, we're actually trying to align our APIs. So basically all the signatures for different methods, we're trying to match all their signatures. So if you write something in PhoneGap or vice versa, you should be able to port your code over to PhoneGap, or bring your PhoneGap code over to Blackberry. So we're trying to get that kind of alignment. Okay, and Ripple. How many people here have heard of Ripple? Oh, great, awesome. What do you guys think of it? Pretty cool. Yeah, it's a great tool. If you haven't seen it yet, it's just an extension that runs in Chrome, and it allows you to actually it gives you almost like a simulator environment, but right in your browser. So I can actually give you a quick demo later on. So yeah, we're definitely going to push forward with the Chrome extension. We actually kind of toyed around with creating like a standalone version, but the problem with the standalone version that you just run setup and install it is it's very hard to update. As a Chrome extension, we can actually push updates to people, right? So, and I think the standalone version had a lot of bugs. So we decided to kind of kill that project and just focus on the Chrome extension. And currently, right now, it actually supports Blackberry OS tablets, and I think there's actually you can actually test like Blackberry 10 in it right now. So there's actually like what you do is you pick your device, and then it actually gives you almost like a skin right in your browser, so you can actually see what your application looks like on a dev alpha, and you can actually do things like push. You can actually simulate like the accelerometer, so you can actually shake the device and actually see what happens. So if you're doing stuff like that. Okay, so this is kind of the, I guess, that alignment I was talking to you about. Okay, so basically this is kind of what our APIs look like. It basically, starts with the Blackberry namespace. We have different objects for our application, event, system, and identity. And basically those are going to match on the C++ side as well. So you got our WebWorks stack, and then we get our native stack. And basically the API signatures will match. So that's what we're moving towards as well. And I think Tim Neal showed you earlier in the keynote, we have this kind of like flight status board. So you can actually go to developer.blackberry.com, HTML5, download roadmap, and you can kind of see where we are with all the different features. So we have a lot of things that are on time, and we have some things that have landed already, so those are W3, and this is W7, so this is the stuff that's coming out. So we got REPL updates, I18N config XML, BBM stuff, and PIM and messaging. So we're looking pretty good to be on track for January. Okay. And I guess the other thing I want to kind of point out is we're very committed to open source. If you actually kind of go to our GitHub page, so it's blackberry.github.com, you actually see that we have tons of projects on there. I think last time I looked, there was over 50 different open source projects. I'm actually part of the one Alice.js there, so I was the sole developer on it. And if you go to that site, like we have our WebKit code there, all the REPL code is there, WebWorks is there as well. So if you actually want to download all that stuff, see how it works underneath the covers, you can actually contribute to the code as well. And I guess from an enterprise standpoint, I think open source is pretty important, because if we were kind of closed source, and let's say you were relying on all these technologies, and if this was closed source, and let's say something happens to RIM or we get acquired or something like that, then basically you don't have access to that stuff anymore, right? So open source ensures that you can kind of fork the project and you can use it down the road. So it's kind of future-proofing that way as well. Oh, one thing. Yeah, I also want to mention the community API extensions. So if you actually go to that section of the open source, you actually see a lot of contributions from the community as well. So they'll have a lot of samples that they actually contributed, and you can actually take those samples. So instead of like trying to reinvent the wheel, the first place I would go to is go to our developer.blackberry. Actually, I can take you to the site. Go to developer.blackberry.com first as kind of like your first resource. Look at the API and the SDKs to see if the functionality is there that you want. If it isn't, then go to our open source project page first, and just kind of look through all the different projects and see if what you want is kind of already there. That way, kind of gives you a head start, so you're not reinventing the wheel. Because I find it's a lot easier to kind of take an existing project, see how it works. You can probably read through some of the source code comments, see some of the hiccups that they ran into, and you can kind of learn from it, and then you're halfway there, right? Okay, so I'll kind of finish that up early. What I'll do is I'll quickly kind of show you, I guess, a few of the technologies. So what I want to show you is kind of REPL. So here I've got like a simple web page, right? So I'm just loading up this. This is a push client, and like if I just do a view source on it, you can see it's just plain HTML code. But where REPL comes in is basically is an extension. So once you install it, so you can actually go to our developer site here. Go over to HTML5 WebWorks. And there's different tools here. And you can actually download REPL right here. So once you download REPL and install it, you'll see an icon like this on your page. So now what I can do is I can click on Ripple here, enable it, and check it out. So now I've actually got this skin for, this is a Blackberry Curve 9350. Right, so I can actually see what it looks like in that kind of context. And I guess the really neat thing is now I can actually, I can change devices. So let's say, I want to see what this looks like on a Bold 9900. I can quickly do that. Get that out of the way. So you can kind of see what it looks like. I can play with the menu here. So I don't have anything in the menu here, but I can actually, simulate the Blackberry menu. I can simulate the back key here. Oops, stay on the page there. Right, so you got a lot of different options here. So I can switch devices. Right, so there's a Bold 9700. I can simulate a Torch. Oops, I can actually change platforms. So I can actually switch to PhoneGap. I can switch to BB10. So if I actually want to see what this looks like on a Dev Alpha, I can do that as well. So as you can see, the Dev Alpha has a higher resolution, so that's why this is so huge. So I think it's something like a 1280 by 760 screen or something like that. So it's pretty huge. It's actually got a higher resolution than the Playbook, if you can believe that. So yeah, so I can change platforms. I can do things like change orientation. It's kind of hard to see on my tiny screen here. But yeah, you can see it's in landscape mode now. So it just makes testing a lot easier. You don't actually have to, take your application, go through the process of signing it, installing it onto your device, waiting for your device to reset and all that kind of stuff, just to, test like UI layout issues. So it just makes it so much easier. And you've got some information here. So let me just collapse some of the stuff here. So I've got an accelerometer here. Right, so if I actually want to actually make this thing shake, I can actually hold this thing. I can actually shake it and spin it around and stuff like that. So if you actually want to test some events and stuff like that, or like flipping your application over and stuff like that, you can do that right here. So I've got some invoke stuff here. I'm just going to switch back to one of those older devices so I can show you push. Oops. Go back to WebWorks. Okay, so if you actually look down here, so there's messaging, so I can actually send SMS messages right to my application here. So I can actually do this all in my browser. Here's a push, so if I actually want to simulate a push message, I can do that as well. So right now, if I just do push, it actually doesn't work because I've actually got that code commented out. But yeah, I can show you actually how easy it is to actually add native functionality. Right, so obviously, like HTML5 doesn't, understand what push is, so it's not going to have any of that stuff built in. But if you actually go to our API reference here, so actually I'll start from the top here. So if you go to our developer site, go to API reference here, pretty much everything is here. So these are all the different APIs that you have access to. So there's the banner advertising, BBM, cache, connection, stuff like that. What I'm interested in is push. So what I can do is I can come down here, and here's push. Right, so we've got all the introductory text here. But I guess the key thing you want to take away here is what are the supported platforms. So here you can see push is supported on Blackberry OS 5 and above. Actually, that's not quite right. It's better to actually look at this feature table. So you can see it's supported on BB5, BB6, BB7, but it's not supported on a Playbook or Playbook 2 or BB10. Push is actually going to be replaced with the invocation framework, right? So it's going to be a little different, but the same idea. Okay, and I can see here I can actually test this in Ripple as well. So just by that little yes there. And these are all the different methods. So there's a close push listener, open bez push listener, open biz, right? So I can actually click on that, and it gives you all the argument information, and there's a bunch of sample code here. Right, so I can actually copy and paste that right into my application, and then quickly create an application in like less than a day. And I can actually show you the code for that. So this is just a sample application here. So this is the configuration XML file. Right, so you can see it's got standard stuff here. So when you actually submit this to AppWorld, so this is the name you'll actually see. This is the description that you'll see in AppWorld. I have my copyright information, author stuff here. I can define an icon, right? I can set the orientation mode. So if I want the application to only be in portrait or only in landscape, I can set that right here. I can say portrait landscape or auto, so it will auto adjust as you switch the device. And I guess this is the line that kind of kickstarts it all. It's this index HTML. All right. So basically I'm saying this is the actual starting point for my application. There's the category for when you actually upload it to App World. And these are the feature IDs. So these are the ones that are actually coming from our SDK. So if I want to enable the push functionality, so basically what I do is I go back to this push page here. And you can see there's a feature ID there. So in order to use this functionality, what I do is I just basically copy that feature. And I just bring it over to my config XML. Add it there. And this is how I enable it. And you can actually also, like if your application is also doing like AJAX requests, you can actually control that here as well. So if you don't want your application, going out willy-nilly to google.ca or something like that, you can actually, block all those requests. So right now I've actually got, every site whitelisted. So, but if you only wanted to point to your own server, you can actually define that right there, like www.xyz.com. Right, so this is how you can control permissions in your application. Okay, so here's my simple index HTML file. So you can see, I have a button here to start the listener, another one to stop. And I'm just going to initialize my application right there. So this is actually the actual core of the code here. So there's not a lot of code here. So basically, I'm just defining a few things from my application. And I'll actually jump right down to the bottom here. So this is where I kind of initialize the application. Right? So I'm just going to start the listener here. So I've got a method called start listener. Okay. And basically, this is the code that I actually copied and pasted from the site. So I'm just going to pretend I'm pasting that in. So actually, before I kind of save this, what I want to kind of show you here is right now, if I'm here, my ripple here, if I hit push, nothing happens. So I've got, I clicked on start, so it should be listening here, but I'm, hitting push and nothing's happening. And that's because I don't have that feature code enabled or the JavaScript code added in there. So you'll see, like, once I actually get that in there, you can actually see something happening. Okay, so now if I reload this application, or as Tim Neal was saying earlier, hit F5. So you can see my application automatically started here. It did an open push listener, right? And now what I can do is I can just come in here and hit push, and look at that. I can actually test push right in my browser. I don't actually have to, install the application on my phone, and go to another device and actually push a message over. I can do it all right here. And, of course, you can pretty much, go to town with this. Like, this could be some sort of like JSON format or something like that. So, I could create like, some results object or something like that. Throw an array of stuff in here. All right, so the data could be pretty much anything, right? So I can, push that to my application. And then, on the JavaScript client side, I can parse that data and, turn all that JSON data into like HTML tables or something like that. Right? So it's very easy to throw something together. So it's not confusing. Right. And yeah, just to kind of test it. So I can stop the client here. You can see I can push. Oops, that's not supposed to work. Oops, I think I forgot some other code. There. Forgot to uncomment one line. So there's the close push listener for the stop. So let me just rebuild my application. So if I hit stop, push, nothing happens. Hit start, voila. Hit stop again. Right. So that's how easy it is. Right. Just using standard HTML technologies. And as Tim said, I can use any editor I want. Like I'm using one called Sublime here. You could use Notepad, you could use VI or whatever, right? You're not, locked into, an ID of choice, like Xcode or, something like that, or Eclipse, right? Okay, hopefully that demo helped you guys.